If men are to be precluded from offering their sentiments on a matter which may involve the most serious and alarming consequences that can invite the consideration of mankind, reason is of no use. The freedom of speech may be taken away, and dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter. Frank Zappa is one of the most enigmatic figures in rock and roll history, as well as one of the most outspoken. His life and career was one of experimentation and probing, always testing the limits of what his audience and critics could and would endure.
He's always been known as a rebellious and uncompromising figure in the rock and roll scene. You don't go to great lengths to be polite about things that you don't approve of. Is this evident in your orchestral music as well as in your rock and roll?
I think so. It's not polite. It's very hard to play.
He always fought for what he believed in, both lyrically and legally. In 1985, he combated the efforts of the Parents Music Resource Center, the PMRC, a committee founded by women married to influential men.
This morning, a night match debate on what's becoming known around the country as porno rock. Our resolution: some rock music is becoming increasingly pornographic, offensive, and detrimental to children. The rock industry should clean up its act or face legislative reforms. Arguing in favor of the resolution, writer and mother of 3 children, Candy Stroud.
I have 3 children, and I believe that they should be protected from violent and pornographic rock, and that it is the responsibility of the music industry to reform itself.
Arguing against the resolution, singer, songwriter, one of the more unorthodox performers of rock and roll, and the father of 4 children, Frank Zappa.
Frogwash, I say. Censorship is bad for you, and sex is good for you.
The PMRC was born out of concern for what the suggestive elements of present-day mainstream rock music may have had hidden within the lyrics, as well as blatantly smeared across their facades. They suggested a rating system that stank with the symptoms of censorship. Frank Zappa testified in adamant opposition to their assumptions and proposals during a hearing at the Senate. His argument was potent, pungent, and precise, and helped keep the onslaught of overreaction and paranoia at bay. Frank Zappa's patriotic defense of the First Amendment helped safeguard musical expression and paved the way for the myriad of artists today who still overpass social stigmas and constantly press the boundaries of society's tolerance of and taste for the outlandish, the raunchy, and the obtuse. But let's backtrack a little. Even as a child, Frank was an unconventional individual. He detested authoritarianism as early as his elementary and high school years. He was always testing the limits of what vocabulary his school would tolerate, not putting too much stock in punishments subjected to him for his vernacular or his blunt construction. His vice principal, Ernest Tossi, got to know Frank very well because of Frank's unusual behavior. His independent thinking showed his unwillingness to accept rules he thought of as totalitarian or pointless. Zappa was very culturally diverse. He lived during the hippie movement and Summer of Love, when the nonconformist thing to do was burn your brains out with psychedelic drugs. Zappa found this sort of overindulgence distasteful because it dulled the mind to creative thought and decreased a person's willpower to defend themselves from stagnation and protect their rights from their government.
Well, it's not just that drugs kill you, it's that when you take them, they turn you into a type of person that I don't like to hang around with. I mean, people just, their personalities mutate, their value systems change, and generally, This is not a hard and fast rule all over the world, but it has been my observation that when Americans consume drugs, they are instantly transformed from regular, normal human beings into raging assholes.
Varese was an idol of his, and Zappa accredits him for his influence. The influence of Edgar Varese is prominent in his more orchestrated pieces. Zappa always had a taste for the surreal, anything that's well away from the box, and he imbued his creations with that preference in mind. His appetite for musical knowledge was voracious, and he spent a great deal of time cultivating his understanding of the art. It was time well spent, for while his humor sometimes underscores his actual music, it is richly composed and expertly executed. On May 22, 1963, at age 22, Zappa opened Studio Z, what would become his launching point for recording his music.
From Hollywood, it's the Steve Allen Show. From the Steve Allen Playhouse on Pine Street in the heart of Hollywood, this is Frank Zappa. You actually play a bicycle?
Yeah.
Are you in the Musicians Union?
No.
Do you play any other musical instrument, anything more conventional, perhaps?
Guitar, a vibe, a spade.
Well, here we are, friends, stereo bikes.
The first thing that I should do is demonstrate to you the different types of sounds that you can get from a bicycle, because it actually does make some very interesting sounds, and of course that's...
His early recording ability paved the way for his monstrously prolific career, totaling over 60 albums in 28 years, many of which are double records. His wild performing style and lack of consideration for popular appeal has left him with a daunting repertoire of on- and off-stage exploits. Exploits range from being arrested for making a faux porn audio tape for an undercover police officer, a ruse that only intensified his bitter taste for authority, to having Vietnam veterans mutilate a baby doll on stage after pronouncing that it was a gook baby, mocking the dehumanizing of the Vietnamese that the military institutes on its recruits. When Zappa heard about the movement to rape music because a few concerned mothers were afraid of masturbation, he made the effort to stand in their way. He debated activists on shows such as Crossfire and Night Match. And when the issue was brought up in the Senate, he, along with Twisted Sisters Dee Snider and John Denver, read statements and argued the nonsensical premise behind the PMRC's attack on the music industry. No rating system ever emerged, and ever-changing musical acts can run free, catering to the ever-changing times and tastes. This is in part due to Frank Zappa's stand against censorship and his push to expand the First Amendment to encompass true freedom of expression without stipulation. A prime example of Zappa's influence is through the founder of shock rock, Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper had his start on Zappa's record label, Straight. Cooper's style of performing is one of intensely shocking visuals. This musical field has led to such artists as David Bowie, Marilyn Manson, and the band Gore, among many others. Frank Zappa's pioneering lifestyle and musical expression is a testament to and pillar of the musically diverse world we live in today. While his avant-garde style of performing was initially shocking enough to limit the appreciation of his music, eventually he began to accumulate a following and was ultimately taken seriously as a composer. The appreciation for Frank Zappa's music and career was recognized by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when he was inducted on January 12, 1995. Frank Zappa was the bulldozer who, through experimental music and bullheaded resistance and perseverance against the encroachment of our personal freedoms, allowed all future musical expressions to fully express themselves without worrying about being censored for vulgarity or outlandish ideas. Without him fighting for our rights, who knows where the checks and balances of our vernacular would have stopped.
If you're 18 years old and you have not registered to vote, go do it. You need to pay attention to what these people in office are doing to your future. Register to vote now.